Will America ever go electric? On cars, that is. Welcome to Talking Vehicles with Joe. I do a new video every Friday just talking about one of my passions, automobiles, and vehicles of all kinds, not necessarily just cars. Anyway, I want to talk this week about electric vehicles. And will America ever really accept electric vehicles? About 5 or 6 years ago, the administration that was in office passed essentially what amounted to a mandate that most of the vehicles in America would have to be electric by the year 2035. Automakers began gearing up and tooling up to make electric vehicles because of the mandate. Well, a new administration gets into office and reverses the mandate. And so now we're really seeing what the demand for electric vehicles are and how motorists are accepting them and what degree of motorists are accepting them. So what's the three main objections to electric vehicles? Well, I think number one on the list is range anxiety. In other words, what if I get low on charge and low on vehicle range and there's not any charging stations around? And, this is a real concern. I mean, in most major metropolitan areas and even the suburban areas surrounding it, there's plenty of places to charge an electric vehicle in virtually every major city and even mid-sized city in the United States. Get out into some of the more rural areas, and it might be a little harder to find a charger. So range anxiety is definitely a concern. I probably will continue to be for some time. Although, when you get out, if you think about it, when you get out in the very rural areas, there's not that many gas stations around either. But the big difference is that if you run out of gas and can get to a gas station, it's real simple to grab a gallon or two, get it back to your vehicle, fuel it up, and have enough range in your vehicle to get to the gas station and buy gas. Not so easy to do that with an electric vehicle. And number two, if the electric vehicle goes completely dead, there's much more of a process and a procedure involved in bringing it back to life than just dumping a little bit of gasoline in it and cranking the engine for a little bit to get it up to the engine to get the vehicle started. So there's that concern too. The number two concern with electric vehicles is convenience. Recharging your vehicle when it's gotten down to a low range takes a little bit more time than it does to stop and buy gas. You can stop and refuel basically an empty vehicle in 5 minutes and be back on the road. An electric vehicle that is down to the low end of its range, say 20% or below, to get it all the way back up to the top end of its range is going to take you more like 15 or 20 minutes on one of the fast chargers. And if the charger happens to be slower, it could take longer. Now, also in the winter, charging an electric vehicle becomes more of a challenge because the batteries have to be heated to a certain temperature for them to properly accept the charge. And so that takes a fair amount of energy. With the recent cold winter that we experienced up here in the Northeast, there were plenty of stories posted on social media sites. And also a friend that has an electric vehicle mentioned that it was taking up to an hour or longer at one of the fast chargers to charge their vehicle. And of course, then it costs more because you're using more electricity to recharge the vehicle and keep the batteries warm while you're charging. So that's the number two problem. The other problems that are big problems, or not big problems, but I think lesser problems in consumers' minds, motorists' minds, are electric vehicles burn through tires a lot faster than gasoline-powered vehicles. They're heavier and the instantaneous torque that occurs from the electric motor puts a lot more stress and wear on tires. So you will go through tires a lot more quickly. Another thing that I've heard motorists express concerns about is how much do those batteries cost to replace? And yes, they're very, very expensive. Depending on the vehicle, battery replacements can run anywhere from $15,000 to $25,000. The thing is, though, that most batteries, most car makers or electric vehicle makers are warranting batteries for at least 8 years or 80,000 miles, sometimes longer. And there are plenty of stories of vehicles that have more than 100,000 miles on them, electric vehicles that have more than 100,000 miles on them, that still have reasonable range in their batteries. Now, battery range begins to deteriorate as the battery ages. And this really won't show up until the battery is maybe 5 or 6 years old and has gone through many cycles. You'll begin to see a little bit of a decline in the battery range. And by the time they're 10 or 12 years old, there will be a noticeable decline. So at that point, you're looking at replacing the batteries. And it's expensive. But the thing to remember is during that time, you've not had to do any oil changes, any tune-ups. You haven't had to have any engine service done, things like flushing the coolant, maybe changing a water pump, replacing an alternator. Those get to be pretty expensive jobs too. So over the life of a gasoline engine, you're investing a lot of money into that gasoline engine, but you're doing it in short chunks at a time versus having to replace the batteries all at once. Now, I'm not going to suggest that. I know in the comments people are going to say, yeah, doing all that doesn't cost anywhere near as much as their batteries. And I understand that and I agree. But I'm saying that you're not, the comparison of, hey, the batteries cost $15,000. You can't compare it to nothing because it does cost you something to keep that gasoline engine running and functioning properly. So, will America accept electric vehicles? I think the jury is still out on that. One of the things that I see that's going to be a huge challenge for automakers, and I've mentioned this before, is that other countries and other major metropolitan areas in other countries have mandated electric vehicles by the year 2030 or 2035. Car manufacturers, vehicle manufacturers today cannot manufacture specific vehicles for a specific market. And the challenge is that you can't, if Americans want gasoline engine cars, the cars literally have to be engineered from the ground up to be gasoline engine. You can't take an electric vehicle and just pull the batteries out and throw an engine in it and make it into a gasoline vehicle because the way the chassis is engineered, there's a lot of weight, a lot lower in the vehicle, and the vehicle is designed with a completely different style of drivetrain. So it would be major work to re-engineer it. And vehicle manufacturers today have to build chassis and platforms that can become world vehicles. Yeah, there'll be some styling differences and maybe some engine differences in the vehicles depending on the marketplace. But generally, car manufacturers need to make the basic architecture to be adaptable for markets across the world. They can't build specific ones for specific markets. And even though America is a huge vehicle market, there's just not scale of cost available for them to build vehicles specifically for the American market. So it's going to be interesting to see in the future how they handle the fact that Americans still seem to want gasoline-powered engines overwhelmingly. Today, as I'm recording this, about 10 to 12% of the vehicles sold in the United States, actually probably a little less than that, are battery electric or full battery only vehicles. You probably get up to the 12% or maybe even a little bit higher if you look at hybrid type vehicles of all the classifications, the plug-in hybrids and then the mild hybrids that just use regenerative braking to charge their batteries. They're probably getting into the 12 to 15%, maybe even a little bit higher range when you include all those. But by far and away, the vast majority of Americans still buy gasoline-powered vehicles, and surveys show that they still want gasoline-powered vehicles. So how will vehicle manufacturers deal with that? It's going to be interesting to watch that in the future. I own, as I've said here on several videos before, I own a full battery electric vehicle and a gasoline-powered vehicle. There are advantages and disadvantages to both. And I will probably in the future, when the time comes to replace this battery electric vehicle, probably do another one. So far, at least so far, because I like it a lot. I enjoy it. There's not that much difference in the driving experience. There is some, but not that much. And particularly what I'm using the vehicle for now, just local trips where I run errands or, make little local trips here and there. It's perfect. It works really well. So in the future, we'll see what happens with battery electric vehicles. My prediction is more Americans will accept battery electric vehicles. I don't know if we'll ever get up to the point where it's a majority unless the vehicle manufacturers just simply really ramp down their offering of gasoline-powered vehicles and offer just a few models of those and expand their battery-powered vehicles. I mean, we're seeing General Motors do that now with the Cadillac brand. They offer an Escalade and an XT5, which is the mid-size crossover SUV, in gasoline. The rest of them are electric. And in Chevrolet, we see more and more electric vehicles. And the gasoline vehicles are older platforms and older models that have been around for a while and frankly are getting a little tired. It'll be interesting to see what they do with those. Anyway, I'm Joe Ferguson. Thanks so much for watching this edition of Talking Vehicles with Joe. I hope it was interesting. If you found it interesting, please like, subscribe, and share this video with someone that you think might enjoy it. We'll see you next Friday. I pop a video every Friday right here on this channel. So we'll see you next Friday for Talking Vehicles with Joe.